Bill Chaplin.
Good to see you.
Hi, Steve Tringali.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Allan
See you.
Himmelberger.
Hi, Mike Buckley. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Hey, Brian Faulkner. Nice to meet you.
This is Allan Himmelberger, Superintendent of Schools from the Oxford Public Schools. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're looking forward to the opportunity of getting to know some of your educational priorities and your background and how that's a match with our opening for superintendent. So ask a series of questions. Now we'll take your order.
Yeah.
But if you have any opening statement, you can start now if you like.
Sure. Again, my name is Allan Himmelberger. I am not a career educator. However, I think of myself as one, and I have spent the last 9 years in Oxford as the business manager and as the superintendent, and had every intent of finishing my contract, which has one more year to run, when a mentor and friend called me in December. And he is the executive director of NESDEC, Art Betancourt. And he said, this is a district that really you should look at. And the more I looked at it, the more it seemed like the right fit for me at this time. And so I'm excited about the process, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Great. So I have the first question. So tell me what you think are some of the most important first steps for a new superintendent coming into a district.
Mm-hmm. I think by far the first step is to listen, and listen some more, and keep listening, and ask the questions, and make sure that you listen to all stakeholders. And I think the most important thing that is everyone needs to feel that, especially with someone new, that they can get their points across. And certainly I don't know all of the subtleties and the nuances that is the history of BMR. And I do think that I'm a very effective leader of a school district. However, I have to know what I'm leading. And so I think that the first step is to listen, ask the questions. Certainly, unless there is a pressing need to make a move, that's something that can wait until everyone has a comfort level with me and I have a thorough understanding of the priorities of the district.
Steve?
One of the things we're trying to do at BMR is improve our use of data for decision making. Can you talk about a time in your experience where you've used educational data to implement some kind of a change in past schools or in the district?
Sure. Well, Oxford, we are a level 3 district, and that has been a challenge. And certainly we have the DSAC team, the District School Assistance Center team for Central Mass that works with us. And one of the key pieces that they provide is leadership on data and how to research and access data and then what to do with it. And we started last year with a district-wide data team where we started to look at data. And this year we have rolled it out to building teams. And that building teams get together and meet on a monthly basis so that we can all utilize what is now a tremendous amount of data. I mean, if you look at all of the pieces of Edwin and what is involved and what is captured and what is reported, the challenge is to have, one, enough time to look at it, and then, two, to utilize it to inform instruction, to improve teaching and learning. And so we are doing that now. We have almost all of our staff trained on Edwin. There is a tremendous amount of data now that DESE captures and records, and it's an operation to manage a school district in today's environment that you cannot rely upon, oh yeah, that's where I got to be, or this is what needs to be done. You really have to utilize all of the tools, and certainly from contract negotiations to prioritizing infrastructure to understanding what the needs are of specific groups of stakeholders. All of that comes into play, but the data certainly is a challenge. We have a terrific administrator who manages and reports all of it. But within the buildings, we're now making sure that people are comfortable accessing it through Edwin, understanding what the reporting is. We also have benchmark assessments through MAP and DIBBLES. And we now map test or K through 8, and we're going to map test K through 10, especially as we transition, it looks like, from MCAS to PARC. And so that type of testing and that type of data is going to mirror what we see happening with PARC. So I think that segue is going to provide a valuable tool for us.
If you were trying to develop professional development, what kind of data would you use to sort of plan that and implement that with the staff?
We have had, we have seen professional development ebb and flow, some of it through ironclad contract issues to now so much being needed to meet the requirements of DESC. And so we need to map curriculum. Okay, well, we're going to use Atlas Rubicon software. We have to train everybody to do that. How can we do it? And we're also a race to the top district, so we have funds that we can use for some of those special projects. And so it's a function of finding out the initiatives that are in front of us, making sure that there is buy-in and interchange between all of the stakeholders, whether it's support staff, professional staff, administrators, and then having everybody come together with what is important. And we just put in implemented a new math program, a new math series last year, Envision Math, from Pearson, which is one of the reasons was that they are also managing the PARC assessments. And while everyone embraced it, the problem was it was over the summer, and how do we roll it out? And we're looking at doing something similar with our literacy. And so we now know we have to make sure we factor in that PD so that everyone's comfortable, understands when it's going to be provided, if we are paying for it outside of contract hours, and so then we get the buy-in to make sure that we can implement it. But it has been a struggle for us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Wendy?
My questions are centered around curriculum. My first question is, how will you ensure that our district's curriculum and teachers' instructional methods are aligned pre-K to 12 and implemented in a way that enables our students to meet the content standards?
This Common Core, the standards now, science just being coming out and being finalized, everybody knows what they are. And as staff maps their curriculum, they can see where the pacing is, the assessments, they can put up all that they need to match to the standards. The challenge is to get folks who are comfortable maybe delivering lessons on topics that are no longer taught in that grade, or where content shifts and curriculum shifts. And I think that piece of it is something that we're very fortunate. We have an outstanding curriculum director who manages K through 12, actually pre-K through 12 now, and making sure that they work with department heads and lead teachers so that everybody is working towards the same goal. And I think that that's a key piece of it for us. And again, there has to be that willingness to collaborate, and it can't just be a top-down edict. It has to be collaboration, because there's so much coming at us that we have to make sure that everybody understands that they bring the same value, and we are dependent upon each other for success.
And my second question is, how will you introduce change where change is needed?
We are humans, we do not like change. And whether it's in our personal, private, professional lives, we struggle with change. People have to understand that change is sometimes necessary. For, I think it was John Donne's, one of the famous quotes was, if we teach today the way we taught yesterday, we're not giving our kids anything to learn. And there's a tremendous nervousness around change. When you take someone out of what they're comfortable doing, or when you ask for what seems to be insurmountable tasks, one after another after another. It's very, very difficult, and the tendency is to get almost frozen in place. And so change, when it is systemic, when it is for the improvement of a district, or whether it's instruction or anything to do with what change involves. It could be something as simple as scheduling. You know, when you change schedules, that throws people into a tailspin. But when you can show the improvements that come from freeing up an intervention block to support RTI or MTSS, then there's a value in that change. And I think once people see that, they're more readily accepting of it. And if they've seen success before, they're more willing to embrace it.
Can you describe a time when a curriculum goal or initiative was introduced and achieved within your leadership?
Certainly what we're doing now, we have mapped our math and ELA to standards, and now we are rolling that out to mapping the rest of the curriculum. And as you had mentioned in the previous question, that change was huge. And it took folks a while to understand that if we work together, if department heads and grade cohorts work together, things would happen. And it had to be ownership from everybody. And once we got the buy-in, we were able to get math and ELA mapped to our targets. And then it's on to the next thing, district determined measures, and making sure that we have the eval system in place, and that, you know, we're ready for Park, and finding a way to improve on our offerings to our students so they don't leave us for a regional vocational high school.
Thank you.
Brian?
Could you explain your problem-solving approach and provide an example where it's worked well and also an example where it hasn't met your expectations?
I always think back to my first teacher negotiations, and I think I mentioned it, Diane and Aaron heard it in the original interview, that we knew we had an issue with not enough money, and how could we get to a contract that was fair and met the needs of everybody. And the teachers worked to rule, but I didn't know about it. And that became a huge problem because that started to polarize the community. Obviously, parents of high school juniors and seniors wanted to know if recommendations and if guidance was going to be working to help their students. And when teachers are work to rule, all they do is come in and teach for their prescribed hours and leave. I made sure that moving forward, that the teachers were going to understand that the collaboration was going to get them everything that they needed to know in order to agree. The problem that we found was we had a labor council who was the roadblock. And it was the old style of negotiating. We're going to meet on this date, you're going to give me your proposals, we'll go home and look at them, and we'll come back in 2 weeks. And that wasn't going to work for us. And so I went to the committee, and pointed out that this was more of a hindrance than the ability to settle a contract in a timely fashion. And we felt that we could do it ourselves face-to-face. Some would call that interest-based bargaining, where folks understand that it's not a game of, okay, you tell us what your proposal is, we're going to give you a counter-offer, while everything else is over here, and we get to that later. And so, once we identified that the roadblock was a labor council, who was a challenge for everybody to deal with, even though he was representing the school committee, that once we were able to have him, actually his contract expired and was not renewed, it was like the pall went away from the room, and everyone felt more comfortable. Everyone felt that they now were being listened to and had a voice. So once we identified what was the roadblock, what was holding us up, understand what the problem is, look at the solutions, pick the best one, and move forward. And I think that's how the best problem solving takes place, and that's how I try and operate with everyone.
And can you share with me an experience where it didn't work out the way you wanted it to?
Well, the way it didn't work out was the initial, back in 2009, when money was very tight and the country was in a recession, our teachers stepped up and took a 0% raise. The first group in town that did that. And then, the very next year, were really took it on the chin from a lot of folks who said, well, why can't you do that again? And after volunteering to do that, and so I think that we thought that everything would just, that there wasn't that big of an issue, but there really was a huge problem with our professional staff and not feeling valued, and so that kind of was a real difficult challenge for me. And I think, again, once people understand that we're all working for the mutual benefit of students, yeah, it's money, and that's what it always comes down to, but at the end of the day, we all have to be willing to have open and honest conversation. And I think that's what didn't happen on that first negotiations. It really kind of got stuck to a point that was going to be seriously impacting the near future.
Can you describe how and when you determine if you're going to delegate or escalate an issue?
Good question. Delegating an issue, when you have a strong leadership team, it's very easy to delegate. And we have a terrific leadership team. And as I said, we have a strong, outstanding curriculum director. We have an outstanding tech director. We have a terrific business manager. And so when, and a very, very competent director of student services, they all feel that they have a say. So when there is something that I feel needs to be delegated and doesn't have to be run by me every step of the way, just tell me what your thought process is and where we're going with it. I think that is very easy to do. When you don't have confidence in folks, or when there are new folks that you still need to understand, then I think it's a little more hands-on, the decision-making and the thought process that they take, so that you understand how they get from point A to point B. Escalating something, I can think of the renovation project that we're doing at our middle school now. And like a lot of projects, when you're renovating a 45-year-old building, what you think is the total amount you need sometimes increases, whether it's due to the costs going up from the time that you did the initial study, or you find more things that should be addressed and make sense to be addressed at that time. And so that escalation took place very quickly from the building committee to the town financial team. And they supported that additional funding at town meeting last year. And so now we are going to finally finish the renovations of a building that was sorely overdue. And when it's done August 16th this summer, it's going to be a terrific building. So that's something that had to escalate because it wasn't going to make sense not to do all the things that we had to do, given the timelines and what was already on the table for that project.
Good.
Erin?
If you could just share with us, as superintendent, how you gain the support of your community to come together and do what's needed for your schools. Most specifically, budget-wise, being that in our two communities, our budget is the largest line item for both towns. And if you needed to ask for additional funds, how would you gain their support? Maybe
Right.
you can use the middle school renovation as an example.
Well, I was fortunate in that I was the business manager for 4 years before I became the superintendent. So I already had the opportunity to manage several budgets and bring them to presentation. And from the time I got there, and yes, the business office and the relationship between school and town was not strong then. And so the first thing I did is I went to our town financial team, and I said, I'd like to have a standing meeting with you every Thursday, just so that we can communicate and make sure that it might only be a 2-minute meeting, it might be a longer meeting, but just so that I know what you need from me, and then I also can communicate what the schools need. And so that, I think, was something that had never been done before. It was always kind of the war of the roses between the two. And then it was a lot of skeptical folks around the school budget that had increases in those years, significant increases. But it was easy once they felt that they could have access to it, and my door was always open, and I would take them through for anyone who wanted to. So you had to have the accessibility, you had to have the accountability, so that you could explain to anyone who wanted to know, well, what is this really doing, and how does it go? When we needed the support for the middle school project, we did a video with the engineering firm and the architects, and we put that on the website so folks could see the need of the building itself and the certain pieces of the infrastructure in that building that needed to be addressed. We also offered several walkthroughs where anyone could come and walk through the building and get a tour from our facilities maintenance director and the engineers, so that any questions that they might have on why we're spending $7 million could be answered. And was it valid, and was this the right time, and did we really need to do it? And so I think the more information you can give to folks and make them feel that they can ask any question to get the satisfaction that they need, that yes, this is where the money's going, I can really see it, I understand it. I may not always agree with every reason, but there's accessibility to it. And I think that is critical, certainly for everybody to understand that. But that we reached out to the community in order to get them to come in and look at the building itself. And when you say, well, would you rather spend 40 or 50 on a new building, or if you want to spend 6 or 7 to make this last another 30 or 40 years, that was a pretty easy sell. So that's how we did it.
And a little bit of a shift here, but since we are a district that participates in school choice, and we have a highly respected voc tech school very close by, we seem to have a large decrease in enrollment each year, more specifically from 8th grade to high school. Tell me some of your ideas that you would use to retain students within our district at all grade levels, but specifically from 8th to the high school.
We face that exact problem in our regional vocational high school, is Bay Path. Southern Worcester County. And I went out and asked a lot of parents in forums, in Q&A, why is that the choice for your child and not staying and going to Oxford High School? And I kept hearing the same two things over and over and over. It was, well, we don't think the school is safe. We hear a lot about the behavior and discipline there. And we're not impressed with the rigor of the curriculum. And those were the two things that kept coming out. And it wasn't, well, you know, Bay Path has all the cool stuff, you know, all of the shops and robotics and environmental science and you know, the cooking and food service. It wasn't that. It was, this is what we don't have. But these were the perceptions. And they were pretty common perceptions all the way through. And so this is something that districts don't really do well, and that's market. You know, you don't have the time, you don't have the people to market what you do, to let folks know that you have a lot of good things to celebrate. And so we held information nights this year earlier. I'm sure it's the same with BVT, but Bay Path has early acceptance. So they take the very best students that are straight A's with no absences and no behavior problems and give them early admission. And the students that really need to go to Bay Path or a regional voc can't even get in. I mean, in the 70s, that's what regional vocational schools were all about. That's why they became part of the landscape, to give those students, and we all know them, you know, the just non-traditional learners that need that hands-on engagement. And so we fight that same battle, and we are fighting back. We got a terrific grant just a few weeks ago, the Math and Science Initiative, MIMSI, which was a federal program, and now it's being funded by the state primarily, and that is still in the budget so far this year. That's going to give us access to much more rigor, because we can then beef up our offerings of AP. And it provides, we have to put a few dollars in it, but it's small, in order to get back a huge bang for our buck. And we put in about $10,000 a year towards this grant, and they're going to give us $60,000 or $70,000 worth of professional development, cost breaks, materials, training, so that we can provide far more rigor for our kids. And that is something that we were sorely lacking. And this is exciting, and we're making sure that everyone knows that. We also had a pretty new and exciting shop that went fallow because we didn't have the money to provide the staff. So that was one of our budget cuts several years back. We had a terrific teacher in our alternative ed program who has an engineering degree, who understands all of that hands-on stuff, and we're going to build more of our STEM program at the high school around him. And so we now have our own hands-on stuff at the high school. We have wood technology, architectural engineering that we didn't have. And so a lot of those students that want that now can stay. And so it is a battle. It is a battle. We also lose, not only lose them, but students who do not make the grade in a regional voc are then summarily dismissed and sent back to the sending district. And that becomes a problem, because they always do it after October 1st. And they also don't take some of our folks with special needs who really could benefit by a lot of their programs as well. And it's a bit disingenuous when you say it's safety issues. Well, you know, you guys get the same federal money and the same guidelines and modifications that we can use. So there needs to be a little pushback, and I think certainly at the state level is where myself, along with other superintendents of sending districts who are really impacted by this, need to have a voice so that the playing field can be moderated a little bit. And it's a huge marketing effort to change parents' mindset that, oh, this is where my children have to go. Sometimes it's a great fit, and if a student, has those interests, that's wonderful. But your mission is not to take just the best students. And, we were talking earlier about Chronicle profile BVT a couple weeks ago. Well, you forgot to say that the kids are hand-picked. Well, we can have a lot of success when you hand-pick your students. And so I think there needs to be some modification at the state level to provide, at least make it a level playing field, accept all types of students, accept students with special needs. And we just had this case with one of our seniors where Bay Path was having some behavioral issues with this person, with this student, and suggested that they might want to finish their high school career back at Oxford. So they're already doing our placement for us. That's wonderful. Guys, you have a guidance staff. You have the ability to direct students as well. After 3.5 years, you don't want this student to graduate because they might be a behavior issue or a dropout. That doesn't make sense. And so I think that, we can coexist, but we have to change the game a little bit. And I think the way to do that's at the state level.
Thank you.
Diane?
Sorry, I got off my soapbox there. I was getting a little crazy.
Can you tell us about a recent insignificant example of your own professional development and how it resulted in a change in your thinking and practice?
I found that early on, when I took over as superintendent, I really thought I knew a lot about a lot, but I really only knew a little about a lot. And so to ask principals to share their day and to help me understand what they do, and to spend a lot of time in classrooms with teachers, and to have conversation with them about their work and what I could do to help them do their jobs better, became my own ongoing PD. And I think, if you talk to any of our teachers, they will say, almost with complete voice, that I advocate for them, that I care about what they do, that I will do whatever I can to support them, whether it is professionally, whether it is with personal issues and family issues that come up, because folks have to know that they have that ability to be listened to and supported. My first couple of weeks on the job, a male mid-career teacher came to me and he said, I know that the contract says I can't take off the day before and after Labor Day weekend, and we were back in school then. He says, but my parents' 50th anniversary is down in Florida, and so I'm wondering if I could take off the Friday and the Tuesday. And I said, absolutely. And he says, well, after he collected his thoughts, he says, wow, that's not what I was expecting, because my colleagues told me I should just call in sick. Well, when life happens, you got to be there. And wouldn't it be better for our students if we knew and could plan and communicate the lesson and make sure that that coverage was there, rather than have someone just call in sick, because that's the way it always was done. So people have to know that there is that support. And I think that's my own PD that really enabled me to support and get inside of people's mindsets that, yeah, this was a mentality that, you know what, I come in, I do my job, that's it, and I will have done it well, but now so much more is required. And to be professional, it takes more time outside of contract hours. And so we need to make sure that that I need to make sure that I support everybody in the district so that they can reach their potential. So that was my own personal PD that was quite fulfilling.
Thank you.
Michael?
Good evening, how you doing?
Hi.
My question revolves around, my first question revolves around budget. So you've had some experience for several years, not only as the business manager, but also as the superintendent. So maybe share with the committee some of your creative approaches on how you're able to, improve programs and manage costs versus, we know there's a lot of pressure on you from limited funds and so forth.
Yeah. The same middle school that was the last school to be renovated and updated in our district, when I looked at it, the lighting was awful throughout the whole building, and it hadn't been touched. And the lights were either burnt out, they hadn't been replaced, plastic covers were yellowed. It just looked dingy and shabby. Easy to go to the town and say, you know what, I need X thousands of dollars to relamp and retrofit and clean this up so it's an inviting environment. But NGrid had a great program that was an 80-20 split. So they covered 80% of the cost, and the cost was about $150,000 to do this, to relamp. And they relamped everything, right down to exit signs and everything in the whole building. And that 20% of that was then, we didn't have to come up with it, they just put it in the bill over, I think it was 2 years. So it was a real great, cost-effective way to do it. And once folks saw that I wasn't going to come and ask for stuff just because I think we need it, but we're looking at all of the efficiencies within the district. And understand where the pain points are and make sure that things are up to date. Right now, we're working on safety. It was a hot topic a year ago, after December 14th of 12. Now it's a little more in the rear view, and it's not as pressing. But we still need the same things done to upgrade our buildings. And my daughter, who teaches in Connecticut, those schools are all the same now. You don't get in. They are fortified. You've got to show a license to the camera, and then that license is checked before you're admitted into the schools in Connecticut now. We're not going to get to that point, but what we did is we said, okay, let's examine what our safety needs are. And we knew that we didn't have radios that reached every campus. We knew that we needed an emergency frequency. We knew that we wanted to make sure we had alarm buzzers for every principal and secretary. So we were able to do that. All of that was very inexpensive, but it showed the town and community that we were serious about making changes. The next step is now we need another $110,000, $20,000 to revamp cameras. We have locks on all the doors, but now our cameras are in various states of functionality. And so we can point to, this is what we've done. We've examined the efficiencies, we've hit those where we can. Now, this is what's left to do. We think it's valid. Law enforcement and public safety say it's valid. Okay. And so we'll see this May if that comes to fruition. I hope it does.
As a follow-up, I'm going to shift gears a little bit into more of a vision understanding. And maybe you could share with us, where do you see public education being in the second half of this decade? What challenges are there? And, what skills are going to be needed to be successful, or just your thought? Crystal ball time.
That's a great question, because there was this huge shift after 2000. Well, we got to go to the 4 Cs. We don't need the 3 Rs. These are the skill sets our kids are going to need. But if you look at I did a brief talk for the seniors last year. When they were in 4th grade, Facebook hadn't been invented yet. You know, when they were in 7th grade, there was no smartphone. You know, when they were in 9th grade, tablets were just coming out. And yet those are things that we take for granted now that have been around for a long time. I remember it, I'm showing my age, 1980, there was only, I think, 30% of the households in America that had an answering machine for their home phone. And you look at how the technology has just exponentially moved forward. So I think that certainly one piece of everything we do going forward in public education has to be supported by a clear vision for technology. And how do we support that? I think that you know, a 4-year liberal arts degree is wonderful, but it's no longer the only path for students. And I think that you know, certainly Washington seems to understand that because there's more emphasis on supporting early education and pre-K, and then making sure that there are clearer paths for students. We have in Oxford IPG Photonics, which is one of the global leaders in high-efficiency lasers. I mean, what they do is it's mind-boggling that you can cut through a 5-inch steel plate from 100 yards away and do exactly what make the cut the way you want it. And so those are the types of manufacturing jobs that we used to think, hey, high school diploma, great, I can live the American dream, I can go to work in manufacturing or in a service job, I can buy a house and raise a family and everything will be wonderful. Most of those manufacturing jobs left us. And the recent trend studies show that in the late 70s, you could still access an awful lot of jobs with a high school diploma. Today, very few with just a diploma. So students have to have a path, whether it is a 2-year certificate program, whether it's a clear understanding that they can go to a 2-year school or go to college for a specific program, and then find what they love and do it. The 30-somethings today, and even the late 20-somethings, of which my children's ages, they don't have a problem changing jobs. They're either going to, you know, go to work for another company or start their own, or they just don't have a fear. My generation, if you left the mothership, you might as well, it's over. And so we have to make sure that students are prepared for what the reality is as they move forward. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Either you're going to go military, right to job, or a 4-year college program. There's an awful lot of blends to that so that students can be very successful today. And it's different for all of them. But I think we do a huge disservice to not only our own bank accounts, but also to kids when we say, you know, you've got to get into the best named school for a 4-year degree. And so I think that the technology piece is going to continue to be huge. That's not going away. All you have to look at is why everybody seems to be buzzing about robotics. Because robotics, to understand that technology, is to enable that application to be used across a tremendous number of markets. And so we have to make sure that our students are prepared for that. I also think that the basics haven't gone away. You know, and it was, well, we're going to have to make sure our students are able to handle working in teams and understand global media. First of all, our students have to be fluent in English. And they have to understand how to write a persuasive or argumentative paragraph. And they have to be able to understand how to present using all different types of media. That's the basics that we have to make sure they have. Because those applications, whether you want to own your own landscaping business or you want to go and start your own business, tech business, those are the same skill sets. You know, when I look at the guy who cuts my lawn, he is a fabulously successful guy, but he uses a lot of technology to know where all his equipment is. And so I think those trends, it's no longer a one-size-fits-all for our students, and we've got to make sure that we offer the paths that get them the most options to pursue what they want to do.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Hi.
Hi.
What's been your greatest professional disappointment, and what did you learn from it?
I think my greatest professional disappointment is certainly in education, that things take longer to do than you think. And I know that school districts have a lot of moving parts to them. But in the private sector, it was so much easier to get something done. This is what we're doing, everyone better do it, or else. Well, that type of approach doesn't really work, especially in today's public education. And so I think my biggest disappointment is I see all this stuff, why can't we just do it? Why can't it just happen? You know, why does it take so long? And as I look, I say, well, part of it is change. You know, we're not really receptive to change. And boy, is there a lot of change happening in our world right now, public education. You know, the next thing is going to be fingerprinting. That's going to be a nightmare. I mean, we're one of the last states to do it. I'm glad we're doing it, but we again did it the wrong way. Great idea, terrible implementation. And so, you know, why couldn't we do it like every other state? Local police do it, whether you work in the town or live in the town, that's where you get your fingerprinting. Done. No, we have to pay gazillions to a third-party vendor to set up the fingerprinting for all 100,000 of us in Massachusetts. So it's that pace, you know, that implementation, you know, everything says easy, but we take the ideas and we can't connect the dots. You know, whether it is the bullying legislation, great idea, boy, was that implemented about the toughest way you could do it. You know, the ethics law, you know, wonderful idea. I have to now take an online test every 2 years and make sure that my town clerk has that in her drawer, or his drawer. I mean, these types of things, you have to manage the pace, I guess. And so that's probably my biggest disappointment, is it takes a while to get things done.
Frustrating. Thank you.
Any other follow-ups from the committee?
I have one. It's a tough question, but I think it's a fair question. Anyone that looks at your resume can see you have tremendous business experience, but limited teaching and curriculum, and how would you basically establish credibility with career educators and parents and et cetera?
Yep. I think I would do it the same way I've done it over the last 5 years. And certainly it wasn't easy, and there was a lot of skepticism, but I think I did it by being open with folks and say, you know what, the best 2 years of my life were when I transitioned into public education, and I was a permanent sub in the Franklin schools. And I'll tell you, any parent who wants to know what teaching's all about should be a permanent sub, because I was I was on call, but I was called every day. At 5:30, I never knew where I was going. I could be going to a fifth grade class with learning impaired, hearing impaired kids with headsets. I could be going to middle school math. I could be going to AP French Lit at the high school. And then there was a stint in a special ed class where, you know, oh, Mr. H, we don't give homework. We don't get homework here, and we don't take books home. You know, and that experience of being just a sub was an eye-opener in terms of what teachers do. I mean, I went home and my throat was scratchy, my back killed me, so my friends that are teachers, no, you don't stand and talk the whole time. I said, no, that's what I was doing wrong. And so in order to, you can't say that you're something you're not, but if you're willing to learn and allow people to teach you, I found that worked very well. And the simple approach of treating people with respect and compassion, when in some districts, I know that wasn't always the case. And so you get what you get. You know, lousy output, disgruntled staff, turnover, and I think that over time, I have about 150, 160 professional staff, counting everybody. And I would think that if you asked them, they would say that that's a non-issue today. That it's a non-issue. Yeah, we know his background. Who cares? This is what he's done for us. This is what we have been able to accomplish as a team. This is what we have bought into as a district. And I'm not a big ego guy anymore. You know, I don't need to take the credit for it. You know, even though, you know, when I drove up, one of the storms in January, one of our students was driving, slippery down a hill, rolled his car, and his girlfriend was in the front seat. And I went up with the principal, and we were on scene as the ambulances were there. I get this edible arrangement from the parents, like 4 days later, just want to say thanks for being there for our kids. Well, you know what? Yeah, I don't have the classroom experience, but I'll make sure I protect not only your stakeholders, but I'll make sure your students are safe. And I think that is how I am viewed now. And so I don't even think it's an issue, you know, when you applied for this position, I had to give various references, and I had to give colleagues, town manager, teachers union president, parents, school committee members, pretty wide group of stakeholders. They've all been called, and they've all told me. And that was one of the questions. One of my principals who I hired 4 years ago said, you know, I told her that I remember the conversation I had with you. How are you going to know what I do? You know, that's a concern of mine, becoming, you know, coming to work, and you're my superintendent, and I'm going to be a principal of your district. And I said, you know more than I do about being a principal, because I've never done that. But I'm also going to support you wherever I can so that you are successful, and it will be a collaboration. And I think he said, when he called me, he said, what I said simply was, it's a non-issue because you have made sure that you have learned everybody's role. And so that's not going to change, you know, but I think that folks genuinely know that I care about them as staff, I care about students. The Monday after Sandy Hook, I greeted every student at every building. And the kids were fine. They really were. It was the teachers in our K-1-2 building that were most affected. So that's where I spent the day. And so I think that in terms of managing a district, the nuts and the bolts, I know. I mean, I am ready to lead on July 1. And I think that folks would come to understand that you can certainly lead without being a career educator. Because there are a lot of districts now who have superintendents that are not career educators. And so I think that, you know, that will always be, for some folks, a struggle. But I will win them over one at a time. I will.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have two questions. One's pretty straightforward, so I'll ask that one first. In your opinion, what is an ideal class size in an elementary setting? And this is not a trick question. I
Right.
really want your opinion.
Right. In a K-4 building, yeah, if we could keep everything at 20, that's wonderful. But I know great teachers who can teach 26, and I know teachers who struggle with 12. And class size, much like building transitions, used to be the benchmark of how well we were doing. Oh my gosh, you're changing buildings every 2 years. That student's going to be in 6 different schools before he gets out of high school. That's bad. And you get class sizes of 27, 28, 29. How can anyone learn in that environment? You know, I have seen teachers teach well 26, 27. I have also seen teachers struggle with 18. In a K-4 environment, if you could keep everything below 20, 22, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have that budget request for an additional second grade teacher this year, because the bubble in second grade is now up to 25, 26, so we'd like to get it back down to 23, 22.
It's always the bubble that you have to.
Yeah, so that's going to be one of our budgeted requests.
And then my second question is a little harder, but, you're level 3 district?
Yep.
Currently. What are the obstacles?
We'll be a level 2 district in August, by the way.
Okay, so what obstacles did you face or are you facing to move out of the level 3?
Yeah. Once again, data pointed the way. We knew we had a lot of kids coming and going. Sometimes it was their 3rd or 4th district in the year. But our mobility rate for a non-urban district is one of the highest in the state. So we add 10% of our students every year, and we say goodbye to 10% of them every year. Those are the neediest students to get them to achieve. We found that when we looked at our students that stayed with us for their entire career, the graduation rates were terrific, the MCAS scores were terrific, but the high needs kids we really struggled with. We also went from a very solid middle-class district when our new high school opened in '02. I think our free and reduced was around 10, 11%, and it's now just done this. So now we're at 35% low income. And certainly, you know, class size and building transitions might have been a way to benchmark. Now, all of the research points to the quality of the teacher and the instruction in that classroom and the level of family engagement. And we know that with our most mobile kids and with our low-income students, our high-needs kids, that's exactly the problem. And if we don't have that family engagement, it makes it very difficult to work wonders in the 6.5 hours we have them to get them to show growth, to get them to achieve, to get them to believe that they can do something. One of my biggest pains in the neck students dropped out 8th grade, 238, 240, MCAS, solid, straight A's and B's. Drops out. Calls me up, because I give my cell phone to these students. I want to come back. Okay, great. Call the principal. Let's meet and see if you can come back. Classic example of low-income, high-need kid without any family engagement. And so if we can find ways to, so what we have added to our district over the last 2 years is a behaviorist and a social worker. I never thought we would be in that business. But we now offer those supports to try and get folks who need that level of support ready and able to achieve. So it is, it's a big challenge for us.
You say you added a behaviorist and a social worker?
Yep.
Are those the first ones to the district, or is that in addition to what you have?
First time we've ever had them. Yep.
Thank you.
And that's because of a rapid shift in demographics over the last 5, 6 years. It has really hit us hard.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Wonderful. So anything that you want to add that we kind of didn't hit on?
I think that the questions were pretty darn good. At this stage in my career, it would be an honor to lead this district for many years. And certainly, the lack of being a career educator and that piece is something that I will have to overcome, but I believe I have in Oxford, and I certainly could here. And you know, all districts have challenges. Your community needs assessment was terrific, because I think there was a lot of honesty in those stakeholders in the format that delivered that information to us. And you know, I think a lot of what you have in place is wonderful. I mean, you have a level 1 high school. That's terrific. And, you know, that shows that a lot of the foundation has been in place and has allowed students to excel. And, you know, you just look at this beautiful school. I mean, you have done a lot of good things and have much to be proud of. And I would really thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to lead this district. And not just for 2 years and not just for 3. My wife and my accountant tell me I have to keep working. I always listen to them, but not necessarily in that, no, in that order, in that order. So, but I thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know it's been a long process, but as I say, you can question a lot of things, certainly the lack of being a career educator and how is it going to be empathetic to what the heck we're doing, but I think people would understand that my ethics, my integrity, my accountability, my accessibility is something that no one can dispute. And I would look forward to working with all of you to continue to move the district forward. You have so much to be proud of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for the time.
Pleasure meeting you.
Good to see you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Good to see you again. I know, everyone points it out.
Thank you. It's just like I get hungry at 11:30.
Good to see you again.
It's in-